It's about faith to believe. It's about hope to receive. It's about love to give life. It's about transplant life with me, Ms. Vinnie. America's organ transplant system is under fire. Accusations of corruption, inequality, and broken trust have literally rocked the nation. Hey everyone, it's Miss Vinnie. This week on About Transplant Life, I am hosting a powerful town hall conversation live on Facebook. Please join me with my esteemed panel of transplant recipients, caregivers, and transplant community leaders. We're talking truth, transparency, and the future of organ procurement in America. So please join the conversation live on Facebook this Thursday, July 31st, 2025 at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Follow us on About Transplant Life with Miss Vinnie. Your voice matters. Speak up and be heard. See you there. Hey everyone, it's Miss Vinnie. Welcome to About Transplant Life. I am your host for tonight's town hall meeting. It is our very first town hall meeting, and I'm so excited to have you join me and my very esteemed panel of very special guests tonight. Tonight, we're hosting this town hall conversation, accountability, transparency, and trust in organ procurement in America. Like I said, we have gathered a dynamic panel of passionate voices, transplant recipients, caregivers, and community leaders, each with lived experience or deep involvement in the transplant ecosystem. This conversation is in response to recent accusations from Secretary Kennedy and the Department of Health and Human Resources regarding alleged mismanagement, inequity, and lack of oversight within the Organ Procurement Organizations, or OPOs, across the United States. We want to understand how these accusations affect public trust, transplant outcomes, and the future of donation advocacy. We invite our viewers live on Facebook to listen, comment, and reflect, because real change starts with real conversations. So let's get into it. My very first panelist is none other than George Cecere.
Hi, Miss Vinnie.
Hi, George. Welcome to About Transplant Life. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a caregiver and an advocate for organ, eye, and tissue donation. My wife, Terry, had a heart transplant in 2022, and I'm very pleased to be here tonight to talk about this subject. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. And my very next guest is Sam Day. There's Sam. Sam is a heart transplant recipient. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Miss Vinnie. Good evening, everybody. So great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm a heart recipient just like you are, and also 10 years just like you are. So lucky, blessed, and grateful for everything and to be here. And I would describe myself as a fierce and passionate advocate for organ donation, for everything, tissues, eyes, living donor, everything. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sam. And my next guest is none other than the infamous Tom D. Mone, retired CEO from One Legacy. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Miss Vinnie. It's a pleasure to be here with this great panel. I'm officially retired like 3 or 4 months now, and I'm loving that. but I couldn't resist a chance to come back and join you on this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It wouldn't be the same without you, Tom. Then my next guest is Lisa Baxter from New York, from Brooklyn, New York. Hey, Lisa, tell us a little bit about yourself. We're live on Facebook. I can't hear you, baby. You got to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hey, Miss Vinnie, I'm glad to be here. I'm an advocate, a social worker, kidney recipient. I had my transplant 9 years, and I'm just glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you, my dear. Thank you so much. Next on the panel is Dr. Somone Washington from California. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Unmute yourself first. There you go.
Thank you for having me. My name is Somone Washington. I'm a kidney recipient celebrating my 15th year in November. I'm also an author of a book called The Best of All Things, The Tapestry of Faith, Hope, Resilience, and the Human Connection. And it's all about my transplant journey, available on Amazon. Thank you so much for adding me to this conversation.
You are welcome. Thank you for being here. Next on the list is Shirley Scott-Brill, a double lung transplant recipient. Tell us about EMAT Incorporated. What is that all about?
Educating Minorities About Transplants Incorporated is located in the city of Jacksonville, Florida. We're a 501c3 organization, and within this organization, we have transplant recipients, family members, caregivers, living donors, donor families, and just all components of the transplant community. We advocate, we table, we go out into the community, and we share and educate and spread awareness about the importance of organ donation.
All right. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is none other than Mike Young. He's a heart transplant recipient just like me and one of my favorite people. Tell us about the Young at Heart Foundation.
Well, I started the Young at Heart Foundation about 3 years ago. It's a pediatric charity for kids waiting for transplant. At the moment, we mainly work with CHLA, and I'm also waiting for a kidney transplant.
Thank you so much for being here, Mike. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least is Marc the Kidney Fighter. Hey, Marc.
Hey, Ms. Vinnie, thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation today with these esteemed panelists and give our insight to a lot of conversations that's going on right now in healthcare.
Yeah, it's much needed, right? We're live on Facebook. We can't forget our Facebook family out there. Terry Cecere is here. Thanks, Ms. Vinnie, for hosting this important town hall. You are very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And then none other than one of my faithful followers, Antonio Larkins, is here. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get started with the questions that everyone wants answered, right? Okay, our panelists have 3 minutes to respond to their questions, okay? And if you have a comment concerning any question, please make sure that you are acknowledged before you speak, okay? So I need everyone to mute themselves, and we will get started. And my very first question is for George Cecere. And the question is, how has your experience with the transplant system shaped your trust in the organ donation process?
Well, thank you first, Ms. Vinnie, for having this platform. I think it's really important that we have the opportunity to voice the counterpoint to the misleading and inflammatory commentary that's been out there in the media. So truth and transparency about the donation process needs a voice, and you're providing that here. So I thank you for that. For me, trust in the transplant system isn't theoretical, it's deeply personal. As I mentioned, I'm a caregiver. In November of 2022, my wife, Terry, needed a heart transplant to save her life. The system that's in place to deliver that life-saving gift worked as designed, and our second chance at life began. And through that experience, I witnessed firsthand what the system is really all about. I can tell you there were no shortcuts taken. There was no rushing. There was a team of medical professionals who worked tirelessly with precision and care to make sure that everything was done ethically and safely and with compassion. And when the sacred process was complete and life was restored because of the generosity of another family, I'll tell you, it was a humbling experience and something that I'll never forget. Since then, I founded TCH Caregivers Heart to provide support to caregivers going through this journey. And through that work, I've had countless stories from caregivers, from recipients, and most impactfully from donor families. All of them were different, but there was a common theme, a deep respect for the process that had brought them through. Now, I'm not going to say the system is perfect. I don't know that any system is, but I trust it because I've seen it work, not just in theory, but in real people's lives. I trust it because I've met the professionals who take this calling very seriously and the families who choose generosity in their darkest hour by becoming donors. So, yeah, I believe in the system, and through every story we share and every support group we lead and every truth that we speak here tonight and other times, we help others believe as well. So that's how trust is built, one honest conversation at a time. Still, I know some people wonder, well, how do you know that this really does work? I want to share real quickly a story of a father I know who went through something that was pretty much unimaginable. His son, who had once received a liver transplant that saved his life, a mere 18 months later, he was tragically declared brain dead due to a diabetic event. He had received the gift, and now in this tragic twist, his passing became a chance for life for others. I want to describe quickly what the father shared with me. He was in the hospital room as this was all taking place in Phoenix, Arizona. And as they prepared to withdraw life support, every part of the process followed strict medical protocols. And he told me he and his family were treated with compassion and dignity. When the time came, the ventilator and all of the devices were removed, and the only thing that was left was the heart and the respiration monitor. In roughly 10 minutes after the equipment was withdrawn, his son's heartbeat stopped. And the team waited an additional 5 minutes before they officially declared death. And only then, after that very solemn confirmation, was he gently moved to an adjacent OR where his kidneys and corneas and heart valves and even the liver that had saved his life 18 months earlier were recovered with absolute professionalism and compassion. That's what real donation looks like. It's this kind of experience that actually shapes my trust. Real stories, real people behind them, and the families who've lived through it.
Real stories indeed. Thank you so much, George. Anyone have a comment to this question? No? Then we'll move on to question number 2. And that question is for Lisa Baxter. What's going on? And the question is, when you heard the accusations made by the HHS and Senator Kennedy, what was your initial reaction? Lisa Baxter, can you tell us?
Well, first of all, my emotions was all over the place. I was shocked. I just couldn't believe it because this is the last thing that we need because, it's already hard to encourage people to become donors. And now with this post and this accusation and everything, it could scare a donor or official donors or other donors away. And the people that's waiting, that's been on dialysis or ill or sick, may feel hopeless because there's not enough already. And this thing here has just made it a little bit more harder or a little bit more worse. It's personal for me because I'm a recipient. I was on dialysis 12 years. I had my kidney Hannah. I called Hannah for 9. And this kind of thing could just, it just hurts because I worry about my own family. I have polycystic kidney disease and other people that's on the list that may not even, God forbid, get a kidney because of issues and accusations and this type of thing that's going on right now. So I feel very personal about it. I wouldn't want to be hurt or killed or anything if it's not time for me to go to glory because I'm also a donor. If anything happened to me for all my good organs, I wouldn't say take my eyes or anything I can't see. But I just want to say, it's just emotional for me. That's all.
Yeah. Yes, it is an emotional situation, and you have a right to express your opinion. Any comments?
I have a comment, Miss Vinnie. I have had the same reaction as Lisa did about hearing the news, and we're hearing reports that within the 2 weeks that this article has come out, over 20,000 people have taken their name off of the donor registry. And as an advocate through One Legacy and the way that we go out into the community and have conversations and table and really encourage people to become donors, it may take us 5 years to get 20,000 people or longer to add themselves to the registry. And so that work has been diminished over a 2 week period because of a sensational article that was written to get views and get community responses just to bring attention to their outlet.
Absolutely. And we don't want to say it was diminished, but it certainly took a hard hit, didn't it? Thank you so much for your comments. Next question is question number 3, and that is for Sam Day. In your opinion, what kind of accountability should exist for OPOs to ensure ethical and equitable practices? Sam Day, what do you say?
Thank you so much. Great question, Ms. Vinnie. So I always like to say organ donation, actually hashtag organ donation plus hashtag transplantation equals hashtag miracles, like me, like you, like others who are even in this panel. So organ donation does work. It's not like, and it's definitely not a perfect system like, George has mentioned earlier and others. I agree with, Dr. Somone and Lisa about it's had an impact. The article itself, the sensational nature of it, and I just think it's not a time to bash any particular entity in this whole process. It's a process that has many, many players, including OPOs, transplant centers, the government, OPTN, all of these things, but I'm wearing a shirt. It says, it's a shirt. It says 1 million transplants, so we've had 1 million transplant. It is the best system in the world. And of course, it's not perfect. So I do believe there is opportunities to develop more accountability, responsibilities in all players. But also, since it's been highlighted, the OPOs do need to take more responsibility. And I also want to say it's an anomaly. It's not like it's happening day in and day out. So we can't ding OPOs. I mean, it's really bad that it happened, and it shouldn't have happened. But things do happen. Health science is not perfect. Things do happen, and there are human errors too. So, but yes, definitely oversight is needed, better oversight. And I believe there has been steps to go in that direction. It just hasn't happened yet. So,
Very good.
thanks so much.
Any comments?
If I may?
Mone?
Yeah, Sam, at a well-stated point. The end of the day, every single transplant case, every single organ donor case are very, very well documented. And so the question is, when these are reviewed by the overseers and CMS and the OPTN and UNOS, and they were reviewed at the time of this case taking place in Kentucky about 3 years ago. They didn't find problems. What we're seeing now is congressional committees that are not necessarily properly educated or informed on how DCD donation works,
Right.
found problems that didn't really exist. We need to help them learn better how the system works, and we need to invest. We need to invest in education nationwide, because we need to have everybody have trust in the system that we know works.
Very good. Thank you so much, Tom. Our next question also deals with accountability and oversight. And this question is from Mike Young. Do you believe current systems are transparent enough? Why or why not? Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Miss Vinnie. I do believe they're very transparent, and I believe the hardest part is when they're asked this question, they're going through so much emotionally, and it's one of the worst times of their lives where they have to answer yes or no. And you're not thinking about, most likely you're not thinking about, everything. So there's things that I would believe that you would forget. And it's happened to my family too. Just recently, we got the call, and there was I've been transplant patient for 29 years, recipient for 29 years, and my family still had a lot of questions. So it's a lot of, in my opinion, it's a lot to do with information and education. And families need to talk about this beforehand, because just because you sign up as an organ donor, it's really your families are going to make the call. So a lot of education is needed in this area.
Very good. Thank you so much, Mike. Any comments?
Yep, Ms. Vinnie.
Sam Day.
Yeah,
What you
so
say?
I completely agree. Education and awareness needs to definitely increase. And like Tom mentioned, people hardly know about DCD donations. I mean, if you check around, if you look at the statistics, since 2010, there used to be like 900 or so DCD. Now there's over 4,000, 4,500. In the last 90 days, it's been DCD has overtaken. In the last 90-day cycle, DCD has been more than DBD, which is brain death. So you can see the trends. So, and the fact that there was laws around brain death ages ago, we need to have similar laws and stuff now, so that, and better standardization across OPOs and transplant centers and all the bodies that are involved. So definitely more education for sure.
Very good. Anyone else? No? We'll move on to the next question. Thank you so much. These are really good responses, and we appreciate it so much. We're live on Facebook, and our next question is for Dr. Somone Washington. Number 5, what safeguards would you like to see implemented to protect both donors and recipients? Dr. Somone.
I believe that in order to properly answer this question, it will be important to go over the current safeguards that are already in place, including things like donors must be meeting strict legally defined criteria for circulatory death, confirmed by multiple physicians not involved in the transplant team. Physicians who declare death is separate from transplant teams to avoid conflicts of interest, that such as what was suggested in this article. Transplant centers, as it was mentioned before, are required to report donor outcomes and complications to ensure accountability. Transplant programs are certified by CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and must meet stringent quality metrics to maintain approval. And CMS also does audits of transplant center performance. The Joint Commission accredits hospitals performing transplants. So these are the safeguards that are currently in place already. And what I would like to see added to these safeguards is that hospitals be required to report donor outcomes and complications to ensure accountability, and make those reports publicly available and even more transparent. Increased checks by the Joint Commission of Hospitals, specifically regarding how circulatory deaths are being managed. Possibly the employment of donor advocates during circulatory deaths to ensure the donor is properly cared for. Like it's already been said, more education for donors and donor family members to understand the process of organ procurement, regular and publicly available audits of patient outcomes, especially around circulatory deaths, increase in ongoing trainings for medical staff regarding the body and the different responses during circulatory deaths, and more robust campaigns to address the myths, the embellishments, and the misinformation around the donor process, so that the publicly is well educated on the subject and can see these types of articles as smear campaigns for what they truly are.
Those are excellent ideas, Dr. Somone. Thank you so much. Any comments? Sam, I need you to mute yourself unless you have a comment. Go ahead.
I do. So thanks, Dr. Washington. Great points. I just wanted to say also along those lines of education, DCD happens more because of a certain main reason, which is actually deaths due to overdoses. And so although the deaths in the country have gone down from overdoses, DCD donations are up because people come in and they OD and come in, so they're not dying out there. They're less dying out there, but they're dying more in the hospital. So we need to educate about that because there's impact, to the brain and stuff. If somebody's on, illicit drugs, or if you're on pain meds extra, you may not know how to decide, or there could be interruptions in the whole process of evaluating the time of death and all those things. So definitely that needs to be looked at. Also, most of these stories, the process actually worked. Most of them were stopped, and some of the sensational items was, when it didn't work, but there was issues in those cases already. Like in one case, the
we don't have time to go over all the cases, Sam. So
no, just one. The person
you got to limit your comment.
She was herself on drugs. So there's all kinds of stuff that's going on that needs to obviously stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I need
So, Ms.
all
Vinnie-
of my panelists, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. Go ahead, George. I'll give you one.
I just wanted to make a real quick comment. I think a key point that Dr. Somone brought up is the fact that those two things are separate, the medical team and the OPO. So the team that declares someone dead, whatever type they declare, and the team that actually then recovers the organs are two separate, and that's by design. And I think that's an important fact that's missed in a lot of these conversations with the public out there.
That's true. Thank you so much for that. Let's move on to our next question. And the subject is equity and access. And our next question is for Shirley Scott-Brill. Secretary Kennedy highlighted disparities in donation and transplant access. Do you think certain communities are being left behind? Shirley Scott-Brill.
Hi, everyone. And my response to that would definitely be yes. In dealing with a lot of underserved communities, and I looked at this as a two-part response: disparities in donation and in transplant access. I feel the reason for that is a lack of knowledge, basically. A lot of people just do not know and they don't understand the process. As far as donation, we know that almost in all cases we have to deal with myths and misconceptions. And these things are passed from generation to generation. For instance, the reason for this town hall meeting, we know now that because of the facts that have been stated, like somebody said previously, it's going to back us up a little bit when we go out and table and talk to individuals and ask them if they want to become an organ donor. Now we have to deal with the situation that's going on. Will I actually be considered for an organ donation? Will they do the right process? Will I actually be deceased? So all of those things we'll have to face. The mistrust of agencies associated with harvesting. That's nothing new in the underserved communities because there's always been a mistrust of those agencies. There's frequently a question of the ratio of assigned donations. How is it that one person can get a kidney transplant, then get another kidney transplant? Some people even have a third kidney transplant. And I think I heard Lisa say she sat on dialysis for 12 years. So I think things like that need to be looked at. And the accountability. Also, unused or discarded organs. Is there a way that more organs can be used? As far as the transplant access, the United States is divided into 11 regions and 58 local OPOs, which are areas that UNOS uses to find matches for a kidney transplant. So when we look at transplant access, as far as with the underserved communities, what's important is where does the potential transplant recipient reside? You know, those things come into play. Are they near a transplant center or are they far away? And I know in a lot of instances, people have to move. People have to be aware of multiple listings. Don't just be satisfied with one location and then you end up waiting still after you've been evaluated. You have candidates who can't find a living donor as far as kidney donation. So we need to take a look at that. And they run into problems of things like having the adequate insurance, having a caregiver, transportation, completing the process for evaluation, adequate support at dialysis centers. And I mentioned that because we know that people, African Americans, are the highest need for a kidney transplant. Yet a lot have mentioned in dialysis centers, the social worker does not encourage some of them. Now, of course, it's not everywhere. Don't even encourage them to get a transplant. And another thing is, are all hospitals created equally? Are they
I
actually
think we need to have a
pushing?
town hall meeting just for that question, Miss Shirley, because she can go on and on and on about that. Any other comments concerning this question? Briefly, I'll give you 1 minute if you have a comment. Lisa, you ready? You want to make a comment about that? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what she was saying is so good and powerful. I mean, everybody's been saying good stuff, you know, but you really got to educate the person that's on dialysis, their family, because a lot of times when you do this stuff, the family don't know nothing about it. You know, I don't know how many times I've discussed with my family that I'm, you know, on the you know, when I wanted to get a transplant and this and that, or something happened to me, what I want done. You have to really educate the community and you have to educate your family. And that's all I'm going to say. And just thank you. That's it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shirley Scott-Brill, for your beautiful response and well-informed response. We're going to have a town hall meeting just about that. All right. Our next question also deals with equity and access, and it's for Marc Coronel. How can the transplant system do a better job at reaching and serving marginalized or underserved populations? Marc the kidney fighter, what do you say?
Thank you so much, Ms. Vinnie. I think with this particular question is starting with the truth. I think too many people of color, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, rural areas, and low income communities are overlooked in the transplant conversation. We have to be in the conversation, not part of it, right? Language accessibility and cultural humility. We need material in multiple languages and outreach rooted in respects and trust, right? Because representation matters. Patients should see people who look like them in every stage, from OPO, staff, transplant coordination, because it gives a sense of safety net, right? That trust factor then comes in. Partner with community organizations. We have churches, we have barbershops, grassroots groups are trusted messengers. Let's meet people where they are, right? We need, and I learned this word recently, credible messengers, right? We need the people who've been through the journey who can help us and be that voice of advocacy. Stop blaming the community. The issue isn't the lack of willingness, it's the lack of access, education, and outreach, right? Also, another thing that came up was tech equity. ensuring people without internet and digital literacy can still register as donors or access to transplant information.
That's good. That's very, very good. Are you done?
Oh yeah, of
I'm sure
course. Yeah.
I'm sure you're not done. You can go on and on and on about that subject. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Sure.
Any comments?
I got one comment, Ms. Vinnie. One of the biggest impediments to transplant across all communities is financial. If you don't have insurance coverage or you don't have adequate insurance coverage, it's very, very difficult to get yourself listed. You have to have coverage for your meds for life and so forth. We have seen some really good with the growth of the Medicaid expansion program. We've seen access to transplant, like in the state of California, where the access pretty much matches the population distribution of the different groups in the state. It isn't perfect because we know the needs are still greatest in the African American community, but it's much better than it was 10 or 15 years ago. So we got to always think about that financial side as well as the education and medical aspects as well.
Oh yeah, we definitely have to consider the financial side. That was really good. We're live on Facebook and we got comments. Stephanie is here. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining me. I am not going to even attempt to pronounce your last name, my dear, but we're friends on LinkedIn. And yes, the conversation is scary. Here's a question from Galen Thomas. Do we have anyone in the House or Senate that would speak out on the truth around organ donation and get the press involved? Who wants to answer that question?
Yeah, there's been a group of us. The Science and Donation and Transplantation Group has been working with Congress members for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and clearly there's a group that have been miseducated by the advocacy group called Organize, which has been funded by investment bankers and is trying to get the 60 to 70% of the OPOs shut down next year. And you wonder why investment bankers would do that. But we have got some headway with some Congress members. And I anticipate we have one who's proposing a bill to change the way Medicare oversees OPOs. And we think it's a very positive move. But it's an uphill battle because there's been some big money put in by these investment bankers on the other side.
Stephanie says that 25,000 people took themselves off the Donate Life registry in the last week in California alone. And she's been freaking out. She's a strong advocate for organ donation. And I believe you're a heart transplant recipient as well. Right, Stephanie? She's very grateful for this conversation. So thank you so much. My dear friend Jennifer is on dialysis now and needs a heart and kidney transplant. So she is very concerned. Thank you for joining our town hall meeting tonight. We have more questions and we are going to keep it moving. I hope everyone's getting, encouraged and educated and informed during this very special town hall meeting. And my next question is for George Cecere, and I have Lisa Baxter on here. That's question number 8. Do you think these accusations will damage public trust in organ donation? How should advocates respond? I think we've addressed that already, but go ahead, George.
Yeah, absolutely. Accusations like the ones we've seen recently can certainly shake public trust. I get it. You hear a story suggesting that someone may have been treated inhumanely during the donation process. It's going to hit a nerve. It's emotional. And it should be. Organ donation is about humanity. It's about life and legacy and love. But these same emotions that stir the fear should also stir truth and advocacy. And that's what we're trying to do tonight. With all of the negative commentary out there in the media, the thing I'm worried about most are the 100,000 plus individuals who are currently waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. Sadly, we know that an average of 18 people who are waiting pass away each day because there's not enough donors to meet the need. This active attack on the OPOs and the mission at large is going to erode public trust and unfortunately discourage people from making an informed decision. This narrative will have a negative impact for years to come if we don't do something quickly. I've been walking alongside transplant caregivers for some time now through my work. I've seen what organ donation really looks like. It's not careless and it's not rushed. It's precise, it's respectful, and it's always done within the framework of the medical ethics and the legal protections that we've talked about. So when these accusations surface, we as advocates need to respond with two things, and truth and transparency. And again, it's what we're trying to do tonight. First, we've got to acknowledge that the process that involves life and death like this does deserve constant oversight. It's not a weakness, it's actually a strength of the system to require that oversight. But second, let's not allow these rare outlier cases, and these cases that have been in the media are outliers, often misunderstood and misrepresented. We can't allow that to dismantle a life-saving system that's helped tens of thousands of people in the past. Our job is to keep educating and keep telling stories, keep showing the heart behind organ donation. We lift up donor families who make the bravest, most selfless decision at one of the most unimaginable times in their life. We remind people that trust is not built on fear, but it's built on facts, experiences, and shared humanity. You know, if we stay silent, we allow doubt to grow. So we have to speak up. When we speak truthfully, we protect the integrity of donation and all the lives that are still waiting for that miracle.
Very good, George. Very, very good. Thank you for that. Any comments on that question? Lisa Baxter, you were supposed to make a comment. My apologies.
Oh, it's okay. He really hit the nail on the head. I've dealt with advocacy for years, and when you're out there, you have to not only tell the truth or be transparent or encouraging and loving, and to help them to deal with this. You know what I mean? You have to just be honest with them and tell the truth. And a lot of times, just because you're educating them, it might push them a little bit further that way to be on the list, or to help their family or whoever needs an organ or something, or even to start working at one of the foundations. Because, the associations and foundations need more advocates, not just the ones, just the handful or the more you see here. So the more the merrier, the more education, the better. You know what I mean? So we just got to stay out there, and be about it. Don't just talk about it, be about it.
I like that response. Anyone else? Sam Day, you have a comment. 1 minute, please.
Just a quick comment. In addition to all of that, I would definitely hope that OPO staff should get out there more. And when we do community events or tabling on things, along with the ambassadors, and to the ambassadors, I would say share your story more, because that's what makes an impact, and that's where people get convinced and encouraged to register to donate organ, eye, and tissue. Thank you.
That's a good one. Thank you so much, Sam. And on top of that, I have a question. For Tom. OPOs have been dealing with the accusations from that group Organized. We recently did a very thorough interview with Tanaya Wallace, a dear friend of About Transplant Life, and she talked about policy, right? And her interview is on our YouTube channel, so I encourage everyone to watch it. So the OPOs have been knowing about these accusations for years. How come ambassadors and volunteers and other advocates didn't know about this?
How come they say again, Vinnie?
How come we didn't know about all of the accusations and the policies that were going on?
In large part because the accusations are really based on a complete misunderstanding by the congressional committees. And the congressional committees were handed a series of witnesses that were put together by the organized group, whose whole focus the last 10 years has been to take anecdotes and misinformation and spread it. And when that came out a few months back on their first hearing, and then it come up again with the second hearing, and then the RFK letter, it's a circumstance that when Medicare reviewed this case 3 years ago, they did not find a problem. This is the way DCD sometimes goes. But so no one brought it up as a problem because it wasn't identified. But a former employee of an OPO who did not work for the OPO, was not on the case, spoke to the organized folks about this and made up a bill of goods. And some of her colleagues, one of her colleagues, in fact, sent a letter, she called it a whistleblower letter, to Tanaya Wallace, he just talked about, and said nothing that this woman said was true. So we didn't know about it because it wasn't really the issue that it was made out to be. It was a intentionally misdescribed series of events, as far as we can tell. There may be something we don't know, but everything we've said it really did not happen the way it's come down. It goes straight to one of the core things that we know about this work is in DCD donation. The ability to predict whether a potential donor will in fact die in the time for the organ to be viable is only about 50 to 75% of the time is that prediction good. In some cases, it just can't happen.
75%. See, thank you for bringing clarity to that subject. Thank you so much. Okay, our next question is for you, Somone, and also
right
Marc
into it.
And question number 9. How can we educate potential donors and families in light of this controversy without discouraging participation?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Sam covered a lot of these points just a moment ago. The OPOs, hospital donation development staff, and their ambassadors need to bring up these issues with hospital staff, raise the point, see if people have concerns, have questions, and have heard this and don't know if they should trust this, because we're talking about the doctors and nurses and aides and assistants who are working with families in real time, and the social workers. And we need to step forward and say, okay, this is what's out there. Are you aware of that? Do you know what the reality of this is? And most importantly, remind them that OPOs don't declare death. OPOs don't determine the neurologic injury and whether someone case is neurologically terminal. They don't talk to the family to tell them this. That's all the work of the hospital treating physicians, and they can't be right 100% of the time. It's just too difficult sometimes. So, but the OPO stands back until death is declared and doesn't recover organs from living people, as was said. We need to have that conversation with hospital staff. We need to have that conversation with the public. If we're called by a reporter, we have to have welcome the call, answer their questions, bring up the reality. Don't hide behind, we don't want to make this thing bigger than it is. Make it bigger than it is, because it's a chance to get the truth out. And of course, continue to share the personal stories from donor families about how much donation has helped them by leaving a legacy, make something good come from their loss. Because this is what OPOs honor, even in cases where we're not sure that this patient will be able to be a donor. We want to honor that choice of a family or a registered donor. And I guess my last thing is the donation and transplant community has been recommending that the declaration of death be standardized across the country. It's happened pretty much in pediatric. Dr. Tom Nakagawa has done a wonderful job of leading that. But every other adult case, it's sort of the doctor's decision. And there are cases where we've had doctors say, this patient's brain dead, and we say, he's not. And they say, he is because I wrote it down. That's not good enough. We need to make sure that we standardize this, because we won't move forward with that case, of course.
Wow, that was good. Marc, Coronel, you got comments to that? Marc? Marc, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hello?
There you go.
Hello? Jen, that was great. I second a lot of the things that you say, and essentially acknowledging that pain that we can't ignore what's going on. Be honest about what went wrong and what's being done to fix it, right? Sharing lived experience. People like me are alive today because someone said yes, right, to donation, and that's so important. We have to tell those human stories, focus on transparency, educate donors that informed consent, oversight, and respect for life are vital and improving. Community education, hosting town halls like today, school visits, faith-based discussions that explain the donation process simply, and amplifying donor heroes, celebrating life of both living and deceased donors are change makers, uplifting the humanity behind their decision.
Very good. Thank you so much. Question number 10 deals with solutions and reform as well. And it's for Sam Day. If you had 30 seconds, Question number 10. I'm laughing because I had a chuckle with Sam about this question. If you had 30 seconds with Senator Kennedy, what would you say about improving the system? Sam, what do you say?
Actually, I probably need just 3 seconds, but that would be a little inappropriate. But if if I did run into him, and can you make it happen? I do want to run into him. But if I did run into him, I would definitely, first of all, say, I guess thank him for trying to be involved. But then I would also state, just like many people have stated here, you need to have the right information. You need to be educated. You can't just, you need to go to these hearings. There was a hearing last week in DC. He should have been there, or his aides should have all been there and updated him and, fed him all the right info. And he wasn't even in the initial ones where, that organized person was. I watched those hearings too, and it was damaging, the way they were talking and the way the Congress people were just absorbing it all in like it's the bare truth. So it's definitely not that. And I would tell them to be educated about how much funds you need. You can't just because you're in a position of power, you can't just say that, yeah, there's problems. It just makes it worse when the situation like this, right? You heard how many people are not wanting to register and people are backing out. And so it doesn't help the situation. He needs to be more informed and then make proper. I know HRSA is doing some changes, working on it, but he needs to have the right oversight again to make sure they're doing the right things. And OPOs, although I heard you, Tom. They're not making the decision for or declaring the death. But do you think? I mean, this is a question back at you in a minute. Do you think they should be stricter when we say separation of duties? It really means no interaction between the transplant team and the procurement recovery team, because sometimes people might be involved and they might be needing to monitor the results, and they'll say, hey, this person, he could go in certain time, and they might be influencing the doctor who's declaring the death. So should there be stricter rules around that? And if an OPO does make a mistake or whatever, if there is a mistake in the process, apologies, and also letting them know, like in a lot of these cases, they were not informed even that, oh, by the way, the organs weren't taken. They didn't give a reason why. It was because of all these things.
Okay, so let Tom answer that question.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Tom, but
No, happy to. You know what? We dealt with this a number of years ago, 15 years ago in California, where a transplant surgeon in one of the earlier DCD cases in the state walked in to the OR while the patient was extubated but had not arrested, and made some comment, the equivalent of, just give him a little more candy, which meant a little more sedation, and so he'd stop breathing. That became a national case. The OPO shut the case down, walked away right then and there, which was the right thing to do. But it has been a standard of practice and a rule in the OPO industry that if you're part of the transplant team, you are not to be in the room where the extubation is done, and you're not to enter the room until the patient has been declared dead by the attending physician who works for the hospital. And that is really the standard of practice. So I don't know that this, that it happens very often, but certainly it has happened. So we just have to double down on that message that, no, they are absolutely separate. And the OPO is separate from declaring the death. And we need to get that message out. But we do owe it to everybody to be, pretty well informed on what the likelihood of that patient expiring in time, and make sure everybody knows going in, even the family, they may not be able to be a donor. And let's know that going in and not be surprised.
Absolutely.
Stephanie says, I would tell RFK to stop politicizing life and death matters and listen to the science and the experts. That's an excellent comment. Phyllis Casper, One Legacy ambassador. Maybe he needs to walk through the donor process. Our viewers have quite the opinion about what's taking place in the nation. Let's move on to the next question. And that is question number 11, right? And that's for Shirley Scott-Brill. What role should community leaders and transplant advocates play in pushing for reform? And any one of you can comment, so don't forget that. So Shirley, what do you say? Shirley Scott-Brill? I can't hear you, honey.
I'm sorry, and I was deep into it too.
Go
I
ahead.
was saying in 2023, EMAD had a theme: see the faces, hear the stories, feel the love. A lot of times, community leaders really don't buy into organ donation. What I find is if you are not involved or have a need as far as organ donation, you're really not concerned. So my answer would be, we would need a unified front. You have to make sure that the community leaders that you have involved actually buy into organ donation. Like I said, a lot are not believers, and sometimes we have to invite them to events, let them hear our stories, so they will see the importance of organ donation. There has to be an alliance formed between community leaders who fully support organ donation and transplant advocates who stand together to save lives, because that's what it's all about: saving lives. Death is inevitable, but before facing that day, we make a valuable decision to compassionately love our neighbors and donate the gift of life. We have to identify the needs of our communities and then take it to elected officials, because they can play a big part in this too. Require complete transparency among local organ procurement organizations about the process to eliminate the mistrust undercurrent.
Very, very good. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any comments?
A lot of times we get a chance to visit the officials, the elected officials, not just with the different organizations like National Kidney Foundation, AAKP. I've been there with them as well. And, you get a chance to go there, you get a chance to go to Albany. And even when you're at home in your local where you live, you can always go to their office. I go there with my sleeveless shirt. I give them a book. I talk to them. I give them a whole lesson, and if you do that, it's very helpful. So
why do you wear your sleeveless shirt, Lisa?
Oh, because of my access. My access is still there. Even though I had it 20 years, I don't need it anymore. Hannah is doing fantabulous and the whole nine, but that's one of the ways that, because people look at it, they stare at it, they give me a chance to conversate with them about it. So I'm tight and close with a lot of elected officials because I always have been, wherever I work and wherever I live. So because dialysis and kidney transplant is so heavy, I make sure it's in their face or every chance I get. And when they see me coming, they know it's not just Lisa Baxter, the author or the show host or anything like that. That's the one with the kidney survivor, the fighter. When they see me coming,
good. Thank you so much. I
Shine
want to take a moment to thank Marc Coronel, the kidney fighter. He says that he has another engagement. So, Marc, we're going to release you right now. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for being a part of the About Transplant Life Town Hall. And hopefully you can join us again real soon, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your contribution. We appreciate it. All right, let's move on to question number 12. And this question is for you, Tom. And it reads, are there examples of OPOs or transplant centers doing it the right way that we can learn from? Now, Tom, I chose to give you this question because you are a retired CEO of one of the largest organ procurement organizations in the world, One Legacy. And I had the privilege of serving as a One Legacy ambassador for 8 years. And it is because of your leadership that I am the knowledgeable transplant recipient that I am today. And so I truly appreciate you for taking the time to be here. You're retired. You could be, kicking it in your chase, drinking lemonade, but you're here tonight. And so, so thank you, sir. How do you respond to that question? I can't hear you.
I'm looking through my notes, and I think I've said most of them, but it brings up a couple other thoughts here. Yeah, the fact is, there's a lot of great examples about how it's being done right and where it's being done right, but it doesn't. It's hard to get these stories out there. The news doesn't want to tell things that go well, right? There's no news in things that work, but but there are some areas. One Legacy's been doing for the last 2 or 3 years 100% review of every single one of our referrals, and we'll get 12 or 13,000 referrals a year of potential organ donors, that possible organ donors. Now that winnows down to about 13 or 1,500 that are medically viable. Well, we went back and looked at 100% of the cases from 2023, just 2 years ago. And we looked at the DCD cases among them. That year, we had almost 300 actual DCD donors. But we found when we went back and looked at these referrals that there were 4 potential possible DCD cases where the family wanted to donate, the individual was a registered donor, and the MD said, yeah, you told the family they had a terminal neurologic injury and they would not recover. So everything was moving down the path to be a DCD donor. But our staff went in and saw the reflexes, the neurologic reflexes were too high, and the patients would not likely expire in time for that 1 hour period of time from the time you take out turn off the ventilator, take out the tubes, and the heart arrests. The same thing that they will do in the ICU for a patient who's not going to be a donor. But we saw these 4 cases and said, no, we recommended the family not do it. So those cases didn't proceed. Now, we also tracked every one of those cases and found out when did the individuals actually expire. And in 3 of them, we were right. But 1 of them, we were wrong. One of them, the cases, the individual expired within 20 minutes. And that reminds us that if we want to be very conservative on this, we can, but we will miss the chance to recover organs, miss the chance for a family to leave a legacy of life. So it's a really good sort of real-time case study of 100% of review of all the cases. Say, this is an example where you can be too conservative, but if everybody is comfortable and families are comfortable knowing they might not be able to be a donor, but give it a try, and that becomes the norm. That is the message we need to get shared out there with the broader community. Because it was said earlier by a couple of people don't understand DCD donation in this country. We've never really taken the time to properly explain it, but except on the one-on-one. But it needs to be shared across all the medical professionals. That was one example of the research that we had done that I think is really, really powerful. Another thing that was done, actually, it was put together by research project. Actually, an act of Congress asked the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine to do a research into improving equity of access to transplant and improving transplantation and donation. And this group, now known as NASEM, the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. The NASEM report is, it's about 250 pages, and it is full of really wonderful, thoughtful recommendations to improve donation and to improve public trust in it. And that was requested by Congress. Congress has done nothing with it. But I'm actually working with our science and donation group right now, who is just sent a letter today through a Kennedy family member to RFK Jr., who said he wanted to see this letter, and hopefully we can get that message in front of his eyes. As there's a roadmap to improvement here in public trust, and a roadmap to increasing transplantation, and it has been written by donation and transplant professionals, and it is worth following.
Very good, Tom. Thank you so much. All right, Sam, we're gonna keep moving. We're gonna keep moving. Time is of the essence. We have another question. Call to action. All right, very important. What do we do now? And this question is for Mike Young. What can our viewers do to stay informed and involved in pushing for transparency in organ procurement. What do you say, Mike?
I believe one of the things that our viewers could do is, when you have questions, please reach out to some of us. This, what I know, I've been, in the transplant world for 30 years now, and in the last 5 years, we have grown so much. There's so many more people advocating, and um, there's so much more going on in the community than I have ever seen. So I think it's important that, we take the time and answer as many questions as we can. I what I do is I share my story as much as I can and share about other, patients, so I can get reactions and some questions. And then every time we inform somebody, it's someone that may not be an organ donor yet, but may think about doing it. And that's what it's all about. Our patients, no, I'm sorry, not our patients, but our viewers, um, keep following us, keep sharing out what we do, comment, because that helps other people get informed.
Very good. Anybody else have a comment? Dr. Somone, what do you say?
Yes, I would like to encourage our viewers and the public in general to always keep in mind that if you're reading an article or you're gathering information from one source, that you um, educate yourself in the counter of it. Not just take this one-sided article as truth, but may it be a start to educating yourself on the full conversation surrounding the subject, or the full reporting, information, studies. Just don't take the one side, because unfortunately, gone are the days where news articles and news outlets are reporting facts to allow the public to make their own opinions about those facts. Now it's very opinionated and leaning towards one side or the other. And so we really have to do our due diligence, not to just accept what we're being fed and what we're being told in these articles, but also learn for ourselves what the full story is that may not have been told in that particular venue.
That is very true. They don't just report the news anymore, they create the news. Am I right? Any more comments? No? Wow, this has truly been an exceptional town hall meeting, and I am so honored that I was able to share the stage with all of you passionate advocates and recipients and caregivers. I have one final question, but we are live on Facebook. Let's see what's going on. Sam, you've been all up in the comments. Stephanie says, so agree, learn for ourselves what the full story is. That's right. Thank you, Stephanie. You have been an active part of our town hall meeting as well. I have one final question for all of my panelists. And that question is, what message do you want to leave tonight for transplant families watching who may now feel uncertain or discouraged? So everyone should answer this question. I'll start with you, George. How do you answer that question? 1 minute.
All right, thank you. To every transplant family watching tonight, if you're feeling uncertain or discouraged, I want you to know this. Your story matters and your trust is not misplaced. This journey is emotional and it's complex, and yeah, it can be shaken by the headlines or doubts. But what I've seen again and again is a system that's built not just on science, but on compassion. Families like yours and mine are living proof that organ donation is a gift that's rooted in love and carried out with great care. So don't ignore the hard questions. Answer them with truth, with lived experience, and with voices of donors, recipients, and caregivers who have seen it up close. We stand with you in the uncertainty and in the gratitude and in hope. Don't give up on this community or this mission, because it's life-saving, and we need to continue to honor it every day. Thank you.
Don't give up. I love that. Sam Day, how do you respond?
Thanks, Ms. Vinnie. So if I may be so bold to say that on behalf of the transplant community, I would like to apologize to all the donor families and in all of the cases where this unfortunate type stuff has happened. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. So hopefully it will not happen, and there'll be corrective actions taken sooner rather than later. Because again, I'll repeat, organ donation plus transplantation is equals miracles. So at this, we're here today to try to encourage more organ donation in spite of all this stuff. So things like bashing OPOs will be like adding fuel to an already raging fire, right? So we need to keep away from that dialogue. And if you're ambassadors, you want to share your story, tell people the process is complicated. These are not excuses. It is complicated. And there are several stakeholders involved. They should all of them should be held accountable and responsible during the entire process with meaningful, strong oversight and enforcement. So reach out to the OPOs, demand training, education, reach out to your Senate and Congress folks to alert them, basically get involved, be the voice, and hashtag make it better.
Hashtag make it better. Shirley Scott-Brill, how do you answer that question? What message do you want to leave tonight for transplant families? And what's the question? For transplant families watching who may feel uncertain or discouraged.
Clock me. As a lung transplant recipient whose life has been extended for nearly 18 years, I value the time I spend in the community promoting organ donation, and that will not change. I've said to those families, do not lose hope. Sometimes no is a blessing and a delay is not a denial. Here are things you should do. Keep an open line of communication with your medical team. Follow procedures. Be your own best advocate. Create a support team. Mentor with your type transplant experience. Find a person you can talk with. Get spiritual support. Someone you can trust that can talk openly about your feelings. And last but not least, keep your faith in God and a hang in their spirit on the scripture, Romans 8:28. All things work together.
You better come on now. You was gonna preach. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Come on, Dr. Somone, what you got to say?
My message is to keep in mind that articles like these and news reports like these are really highlighting a 1 or 2% response or outcomes of a 90+% success rated process. So just keep that in mind. This is a great process. There are safeguards already in place. This is a safe process. Every opportunity to follow protocol is done at every opportunity. And there's just a very low percentage of the outcomes being like the one mentioned in this article. So let's focus on the 90+% of success in saving lives like mine, and all the ways that lives have been enhanced over the years through this process. And that's all I really have to say about it.
That's very good. Thank you so much. Lisa Baxter, how do you answer this question? Unmute yourself. You have 1 minute.
I would say stay encouraged, okay? Don't give up. The same God that kept you on dialysis all this time, or kept you with your whatever organ that you have is still holding on. Whether you're on hospice, whether you're at home, whether you're in the community, whether you're working, whether you're at your bed and your bedside inside your house, stay encouraged. Keep up the work. Do your research. Do your homework. If you have to do an autopsy because you don't believe what they're saying, then you get the autopsy or whatever you got to get done. But stay encouraged. Believe God. There's something tailor-made out there for you, and you're going to get it. So hold on to get the goal, to get the prize, and to win. Thank you.
Very good. Very, very good. Mike Young, heart transplant recipient. What say you?
What I would say is, don't let the fear, fear, anxiety, all that stuff get to you. Get more informed, reach out to people like ourselves, who could answer some questions. And, nothing's perfect, but we're at a great, like, like was mentioned before, 90% success rate and everything. And um, there's always gonna be something that's an anomaly. But with faith, trust, and belief, anything's possible. And this community is just growing, and we're helping educate more and more. So I think we're in a good place, no matter what.
Faith, trust, and belief. I like that. Thank you so much, Mike. And last but not least, Tom D. Mone, retired CEO of One Legacy. What message do you want to leave tonight for transplant families watching who may now feel uncertain or discouraged?
I'm sort of following on Somone and Mike's comments with involves numbers and percentages. We were talking about the 2,500 Californians who took themselves off the registry. That you don't want one person to take themselves off, but that turns out to be 1/100th% of the 19 million Californians who are registered. So while the circumstance and the news reports are damning and frightening, the reality is it is not going to have the negative impact that people might fear, because it sounds inflammatory, but it's not affecting that many people. Maybe because only less than 2% or 3% of people read the New York Times, but let's use this. Even though it may just blow over, let's use it as a time to bring out the truth, bring up the topic, get the discussions going, and earn public trust where we may never have had it in the first place. Let's use this for good.
That's excellent. We would not be here tonight if it wasn't for the controversy, right? And controversy brings conversations. Phyllis Casper says, thank you, Ms. Vinnie, and to all your panel members. Outstanding group. Knowledge is power. Antonio Larkins, I believe we can take this time to educate, because now people have questions, right? People who have never heard about organ donation and transplant, now they're paying attention, right? Let's share our stories to tell the truth about organ donation. That's an excellent comment. And so we appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of our very first town hall meeting here live on Facebook. And if I might add to that, where did I got to turn that off. I got a bad habit of not turning stuff off, y'all. If I might add my little 2 cents in to this question, what message do you want to leave tonight for transplant families watching who may now feel uncertain or discouraged? Just like my dear friend Shirley said, have faith in God. And this is one of my favorite scriptures. I read this all the time. And it says, why are you in despair, O my soul? And why have you become restless and disturbed within me? Hope in God and wait expectantly for him. For I shall again praise him for the help of his presence. And I say this all the time. God is a very present help in time of trouble. So we just have to trust him, seek his wisdom, and know that everything is going to be all right. So thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight on this esteemed panel of transplant recipients, caregivers, and transplant community leaders. Until next time. And for everyone on Facebook, thank you for watching. And stay tuned. I have a few messages that I want to share with you. And I want to encourage you, please visit our YouTube channel and check out that very interesting interview that I did with Tanaya Wallace. Is very informed. Tanaya speaks policy. She talks all about the final rule policy and what led us to this conversation tonight. It's all Tanaya's fault, Tom. She's the reason why we're all here tonight, and we're so grateful. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great week, and we'll see you again next week on About Transplant Life.
Thank you, Ms. Vinnie.
Don't go away, you guys.
Thank you, Vinnie.
Please watch About Transplant Life TV every Saturday at 8:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. through Pasadena Media's channel on Spectrum Cable TV Channel 32, AT&T Uverse Cable Channel 99, or you can watch it live stream at pasadenamedia.org. Thanks for watching. Today on About Transplant Life, I am honored to share the incredible story of Lisa Rohn, a grateful kidney transplant recipient, and her living donor, Yvonne Camper from Los Angeles, California. Young Lisa Rohn was only 17 years old when she was diagnosed with renal kidney failure. For over 18 years, Lisa endured weekly dialysis treatments while facing the challenges of life as a single mother. And through it all, her faith in God never wavered as she praised her way through her painful situation. Then, as God would have it, along came Yvonne Camper, who prayerfully agreed to share her spare. Yvonne became a living kidney donor for Lisa, and everything changed. That was 20 years ago, and now both of these beautiful ladies are the best of friends, and they give God praise for all that He has done, and we are going to talk about it.
Say yes. For more information on how you can become a registered organ donor, please visit abouttransplantlife.com.